One night you go out with your friends to watch the newest horror movie from the Conjuring universe. It stars Vera Farmiga as Lorraine and Patrick Wilson as Ed. You know these two characters are actually based on two real-life people that led very real lives. That leaves you to wonder, what were they really like? And how did they become so famous to have a movie, let alone several movies, made about their cases? That is what we are going to explore today, so that the next time you see one of their movies, you will understand them just a little bit better. Welcome to Tales from the Graves, where shadows lurk and whispers echo.
Join us as we delve into the unknown, exploring tales of mystery, horror, and the supernatural.
Be prepared to journey into the darkness, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Jess.
Together, we're the Grave Sisters, and we'll be your guides as we unearth the strange and unusual.
So find your flashlight, grab your shovel, and let's dig in.
The following podcast is rated for mature audiences.
It may contain graphic scenes of violence and explicit language that some may find disturbing.
Listener discretion is advised.
Good day, grave diggers. It's Jess and Jen here. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Are you having a wonderful day, my sister?
Some funny things have happened today.
The last episode was very, very heavy.
Oh yeah, very heavy.
So I thought maybe we could lighten it up a little bit with a supernatural power couple named Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Ed and Lorraine Warren, married, everything like that, had a child. Supposedly Ed's intern or his secretary or something was his mistress, and Ed and Lorraine just kind of stayed together because they were Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were a power couple for the supernatural.
I didn't find any of that.
Really?
I actually really didn't look for that.
I didn't figure you probably would, but I go weird places on the internet and I find some weird information and then I'm like, oh.
We might have to get in that rabbit hole a little bit later, but let's begin with Ed and Lorraine. Ed Warren was a self-taught demonologist, and Lorraine Warren, a very gifted clairvoyant and medium. They both dedicated about 50 years of their lives to investigating the unknown. From founding the New England Society for Psychic Research to tackling some of the most infamous hauntings in history, their work has left an indelible mark on the world of the supernatural. So today we will be discussing stories behind their most chilling cases, some of the controversies that followed them, and the enduring legacy that they left behind. Let's get ready for a journey into the paranormal with the legendary Ed and Lorraine Warren. But before they became the world-renowned ghost hunters, they were just some normal, regular people like you and me. That would be a great place to start. So, Edward Warren Miney and Lorraine Rita Moran were both born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Ed in 1925 and Lorraine in 1927. The first thing that I discovered was that Warren wasn't Ed's real last name. It threw me off. I'm like, who the heck is this Miney character? Miney is his legal last name. Warren is just their stage name that they used for their cases. And I thought that was a pretty cool fun fact. I noticed that when I said Miney, you were like, what?
Yeah. No, my face was like, who the heck is that?
That's their legitimate legal last name. Yeah, they just used the stage name Warren, which was Edward's middle name, coincidentally. But Ed grew up in Bridgeport, like I mentioned, which is just a quaint little town in New England. His parents were Pauline and Frank Edward Miney. He grew up with two siblings named Frank Raymond and Nanette. In his childhood home is where his fascination with the paranormal began. When we're little kids, most of the time we're afraid of maybe a monster under our bed or thinking something could be peeking out of our closet, that kind of stuff. Most of the time, though, it is just our imaginations running away with us. But in Ed's case, he had a legitimate reason to be afraid of his closet. On occasion, he would see orbs forming in his room and float to his closet, and in the midst of that, an old woman's face would appear poking out of his closet. He could hear footsteps, feel the air change from hot to cold, hear breathing, and he knew that there was some kind of logical reason for that being to be there, but never really figured out why. I saw in the documentary where I got a lot of my information that he went and told his dad about it because his dad was a very logical thinker. And his dad was like, well, there's got to be a logical reason for it. And he just never gave Ed a logical reason. So Ed was just like, love to hang in, like, you tell me that there's something logical going on, but you don't really go into detail and explain what it is. So that kind of planted the seed in his mind. Well, I'll find the logical reason for some of this stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. So it definitely made him more curious about what it could mean. And he chased that feeling for the rest of his life, pretty much. Now, when Lorraine was young, she went to an all-girl Catholic school. Around my daughter's age, around 9 years old, she began noticing, quote-unquote, lights around people. And she mentioned that she thought everyone could see that. What does that sound like to you, Jen? What does that light around people sound like?
Their aura.
Yes, exactly. Turns out that it was auras that she was seeing. And she mentioned it to one of her friends, and one of the sisters overheard her and was like, Lorraine, we don't talk about such things here. So she basically asked her to not talk about that kind of stuff because it's just not what they did. And so she didn't really bring it back up. But Lorraine still really had no idea what it meant. And she would try to practice more at home by herself, but she never truthfully told her parents about her abilities, because I guess she was afraid of what they would say. But her life changed as a teenager and had a little meet cute with Ed one night when she went to the movie theater with some of her friends. So her friend said that there was a cute boy that was an usher there at the theater. I think it was called like the Colonial or something. There was a cute usher there, and they thought that she should meet him. Lorraine really wasn't into boys. She just never really thought about it. She was more of a bookworm, and she would prefer books and her studies to dating. But when she saw Ed, it was game over. She said he had a charming smile and he smelled good, which she said he smelled like Noxzema, which was aftershave, I think. He smelled good and he looked really sharp. And so that was all she thought about it. But when the movie was over, he asked her and her friends if they would allow him to walk them home. They happily said yes, and on the way he offered to buy them some Cokes. They all went to the soda shop, and Lorraine's friends ordered Cokes, but Lorraine decided she was going to be bougie and get a float instead. Ed was hooked. Basically, he was hooked. He walked them down the road and dropped the friends off, but Lorraine lived the farthest away and thought that it would be inappropriate for a boy to walk her to her house alone, since she left her house all by herself. Being a gentleman, Ed said his goodbyes and walked across the street, and then a vision just flashed in Lorraine's head. She no longer saw the boy that was walking her home, but she saw a fully grown man that Ed was going to be, and she knew at that moment that she was going to marry him. She even went into her house that night and wrote in her diary she met the man of her dreams that she would spend her life with. And as they say, the rest is history. And that's so cute.
How old was Ed?
She was about 16 and he was about 17.
Okay, just making sure it wasn't creepy, you know?
No. They were teenagers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So Ed entered the Navy very shortly after he and Lorraine met, and they constantly wrote back and forth to one another during World War II. But while he was fighting in the war, tragedy struck. His ship was in a collision with an oil tanker, and it caused him and his fellow soldiers to fight a different battle for their lives as flames from the shipwreck surrounded them on the water. They swam and swam to find some kind of safety as they were thinking that all hope was lost, and they started praying. And at that moment, one of the walls of flames opened up, and a rescue vessel blasted through and pulled them out of the water along with one of his friends that he was attempting to save himself. He knew in his heart that life was too short to not tell the ones that you love how much they mean to you. So he made up his mind that minute that whenever he gets back home on his survivor leave, he was going to ask Lorraine to marry him. And he did just that. He came home. He was only supposed to be home like a couple days, but as soon as he got there, he asked her to marry him. They got married, had a short little honeymoon, and then he went right back to continue fighting. After the war, he and Lorraine settled down, and Ed went to art school, and he began his journey into painting. He would sell a lot of his paintings for like $3 to $5 a pop, which back then, selling like 5 paintings a day to tourists was a lot of money. You got to think of it like that.
Yeah.
So life moves on, and Lorraine gives birth to their only child, Judy, in 1946. Ed and Lorraine still had their curiosity for the paranormal and decided to take a little tour of a place called the Ocean-Born Mary House. Have you ever heard of that place?
No, I haven't.
I've never heard about it, but I think maybe Josh Gates might have covered it one time on Expedition Unknown, which we should know because Jen and I are obsessed with Josh Gates. He is our boyfriend.
He's our boyfriend.
He's definitely our boyfriend.
Absolutely. Let's be a little more creepy there and just be like, you know what? Josh Gates, you listening out there? For whatever reason you're listening to a very small podcast, we love you.
We love you.
Just,
hit us up.
Yeah.
Wink, wink. talesfromthegraves@gmail.com. Anyway, so the legend of Ocean-Born Mary is that her mother was pregnant with her while her parents were on a ship coming to America. She went into labor, and when she got off the boat, and that same day, pirates raided their town. While the pirates were pillaging, they heard the cry of a newborn. When they found Mary, they fell in love with the baby instantly, and they were so moved by her that they stopped what they were doing and made a deal with the baby's mother. They agreed to leave if the mother would name the baby Mary, which the mother agreed. She's like, okay, sure, I'll do whatever. Just go, And the captain was pleased. So he gave the mother a green silk dress for Mary to wear on her wedding day. And they left, which is really cool. Mary spent the rest of her life in that house and died there. And the owners of the home and tourists have mentioned seeing her there as if she were still living. Ocean-Born Mary's tale intrigued the couple. So while there, Ed was talking with the owner, and all of a sudden, Lorraine goes in like this trance. She goes like numb. Nobody can get through to her. Ed was getting really worried about Lorraine, and he tried to do everything he could to snap her out of it. And he looked at the owner and he said, "What is going on?" And then the owner just nonchalantly was like, "Oh yeah, that always happens to clairvoyants when they visit the property." Now they had a name for Lorraine's gift.
Oh. Okay.
That was really cool because, she thought that what she was going through, everyone did. Because she didn't talk about it with anybody. She didn't have anyone to discuss it with and try to figure out exactly what was going on. So now they actually had a name for what she could do. So I thought that was really cool. But that just made the couple's curiosity deepen and inspire them to seek out further haunted houses. I would too, if I were being honest. One way that the Warrens gained access to haunted locations was for Ed to bring his paint supplies and paint a portrait of the homes and the surrounding landscapes. This would give Lorraine, the charming woman she was, the perfect opportunity to tell the owners that, "Oh, my husband just loves painting haunted homes." that gave them their in. This let the owner know that they wouldn't be judged or criticized if they would open up to them. And Ed got to learn from those people that they spoke with that he really isn't the only person that experienced paranormal things like this, and it helped them not really trauma bond, but kind of trauma bond, if you know what I'm saying. It is always nice to know that someone else was like in the same kind of boat as you were, you know what I'm saying? So they did that for a while, and word spread about them, and this eventually led to people contacting Ed and Lorraine asking for help, and they took on the cases happily. It didn't matter your age, your race, your lot in life. They wanted to help everybody. Many noted paranormal investigators credit the Warrens with helping them to understand that everyone has paranormal problems. It doesn't matter where you come from. Both Ed and Lorraine had been instilled with the belief of the paranormal since a young age. They were each raised Roman Catholic, as Jen and I were, and they heard stories of angels and demons, exorcisms and possessions, and their wonder only grew as they discovered what they can do to help people. Their investigations, they did so many that it led them to create the New England Society of Psychic Research in 1952. I really do wish I could have joined so bad. I would have been their most dedicated investigator. I'm not kidding. Now, by the 1970s, Ed and Lorraine had already investigated countless cases, and their reputation gave them a new power couple name. The Seekers of the Supernatural. That's a pretty badass name, if I do say so myself. So they set out to prove to not only themselves, but to other people that the devil was real. They used video and audio recordings to try their best to get help from the church. So 1968 rolls around, and Ed and Lorraine are introduced to the owner of the Annabelle doll.
Oh, yeah. No, I actually know this story. It's not as dramatic as the movies make it out to be.
Oh, definitely not.
And the doll that's in the movies was made for the movies to be super creepy looking and stuff. Annabelle is just a Raggedy Ann doll.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's just a straight up Raggedy Ann doll. But the thing was, one of the girls was given this doll from her mom, and mischievous things would happen around the house. They thought that it was a little girl by the name of Annabelle that was attached to the doll, so they were all nice to it, and said, okay, you can stay, but you can only, live in the doll if you want. Bad idea. Because that's where everything went wrong. Turns out, it was a demonic spirit, and it inhabited the doll like a vessel.
Yeah, never, ever.
Be like, oh yeah, you can totally do this. You can be our little ghost pal and inhabit this, or you're free to come with it. Don't do that.
No, don't. Don't be dumb.
Don't do that.
That's stupid. So whenever Ed and Lorraine went and spoke with the kids that had the doll, they offered to take the doll off their hands. And when they did, they placed it in their own little museum that they have at their home, which I would love to visit. So they put it in a glass enclosure, and it had holy relics all over it, and it was blessed, and it's kept behind that tempered glass or whatever it's called, so that nobody can touch it. Nobody can open it, and maybe if the doll comes to life one day, it won't be able to open it itself.
Well, they actually have to have a priest come in and bless their museum, quote unquote.
Once a month, right?
Yeah, monthly.
Ugh, to keep everything subdued, because they have so many haunted relics in there. It's just insane. In 1971, they received a call from a certain family that was desperate for help. This would be their first big case. The family was the Perrin family. You know who the Perrin family was?
The family from The Conjuring, right?
Yes. So you might know them as the Conjuring Home. Ed and Lorraine knew that they needed to help. They began how they normally do. Ed would interview the family, while Lorraine would walk around and get a reading. And as soon as Lorraine picked something up, they knew that something serious was going on in the home. They held a seance to get some kind of answer or some kind of information as to who might be haunting the house. That is when shit hit the fan. Something grabs hold of Carolyn Perrin and possesses her. She got thrown from her chair and began speaking in a language that none of them understood. So this straight up pissed Roger off. Roger Perrin. He ran to his wife, and Ed intervened and stopped him and told him that it wasn't safe because she was possessed. But Roger didn't go for it. He wanted to do anything and everything he could to try and help his wife. So this is where Roger Perrin punched Ed Warren in the face to try and get to his wife, and then kicked the Warrens out. So obviously the movie The Conjuring was Hollywooded up, because that's basically where it ended there with the Perrins. But that proved that the Warrens tried their best to help others, but weren't always successful. Just like everybody's careers and in their life, you don't always get what you want. You can't always help everybody, but you can just do the best that you possibly can. So that goes to show you that that movie definitely was Hollywooded up. Not saying it was a bad movie. I liked it, but 5 years later, they were given maybe their most infamous case throughout their entire career. Can you guess which one it is?
The Amityville Horror.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes, none other than the Amityville house. Now, I just might actually cover the entire story of what exactly happened in that home in a later episode, so I don't think I'm really going to go into much detail about what happened in the house. Let's just say that after the Amityville case, the book, and the original movie, they had become more famous than they could have ever imagined.
If you haven't seen, I think it was the 1970 version, or the remake with Ryan Reynolds in it.
Ooh, Ryan Reynolds, bearded.
What are you doing?
What are you doing with your life?
Go watch it. It's so good.
Ugh, yes it is. Especially shirtless Ryan Reynolds with a beard. Anywho, they were no longer just Ed and Lorraine. They became known as America's ghost hunters. They became pop culture icons and hit the interview circuit. They were in very high demand. I mean, I would have honestly given anything to be in one of those rooms to watch and listen to them, because they did a lot of college lectures as well. They would show videos and play recordings and take all kinds of questions and maybe even get offers for help. If anyone needs any help in the area, some people might actually get the help that they needed, which I thought was really stinking cool. It humanized them and made everybody know in America, yeah, you're one of us. It happens to everybody. But with what they did, there were bound to be skeptics and people who thought that they were full of it. So in order to try to combat that and calm down people, Lorraine agreed to undergo testing at UCLA to showcase her abilities. She wanted to showcase her abilities, so she was hooked up to machine, and test after test after test was ran. At the end of it, she was labeled as a light trance medium, which meant that she was well aware of her surroundings and what was going on when she went into a trance. There's a difference between deep trance mediums and light trance mediums. Deep trance mediums would close their eyes and basically black out, and someone else would take over, if you know what I'm saying. And when they came to, they had no idea what happened. That is different from what Lorraine Warren could do. So Lorraine and Ed worked diligently to try and prove that the devil was real, and they got the chance to do just that when it came to a certain boy named Arnie Johnson. He stabbed his landlord to death and said it wasn't him in control of his body. So this is the famous "the devil made me do it" case.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be covering this case later. It's definitely on my to-do list.
Yeah. But the short part of it, it was argued that he had become possessed when he defended his fiance's little brother during an exorcism where he offered himself to the demon to save the boy.
Yep.
He challenged the demonic, and that is where he fucked up. Ed and Lorraine had to establish in a court of law that there was really such a thing as demonic possession. They had to show legal precedent that a possession was actually possible and could be used as a defense. After a long and tedious trial, the judge ruled that demonic possession is not an acceptable defense, and it was irrelevant to the case, so the possession defense was thrown out. The judge didn't want to be known as the one that allowed the devil made me do it defense. That way, it wouldn't be used willy-nilly. But that didn't deter the Warrens from pursuing what they felt was the truth, so they didn't stop their work. Many people sought help from the church and were turned away because most of the clergy would tell them that there was no such thing as ghosts. But nothing pissed Ed off more than having someone begging for help and being turned away and being told that there was no such thing as a supernatural. So this put gas on the fire for them. This made the Warrens use their fame in the media to try and get the church to do exorcisms and cleanse homes. When the church got word of what the Warrens were doing, that made them reconsider. So they were more willing to help now that they seemed like they weren't willing to aid others in their spiritual need. On to 1986, the Snedeker family. You heard about this case?
I don't think so.
All right.
Is it the Haunting in Connecticut?
Yes.
Ah, cool. So this is a movie that came out before the quote-unquote Conjuring universe was established.
Yep. So the Snedeker family was in need of a home to rent. They were at their wits' end whenever their son became ill, and they had a hard time traveling back and forth from their home for his cancer treatments. So they decided to try and find a home closer to where he was receiving treatment. So they found this really cute house that they could afford, that was big enough for their big family. But the only downside is it was a former funeral home. That I would probably think it was cool because I'm morbid and I like the macabre, but that's just me. So you may know their home as the Haunting in Connecticut home. This case had so many twists and turns. It is just wild, all the things that happened to this family. They were beyond desperate. So the mother of the house, Carmen Snedeker, called Lorraine in the middle of the night. Lorraine walked through their home the next day, and after she finished, she told Carmen Snedeker that she felt that there was a very strong demonic presence in the home. They teamed up to battle evil and help the family. So 9 weeks after Carmen called the Warrens, an exorcism took place in the home by a priest. I could go into great detail about this case, but we don't really have the time for that one. Let's just say it was bonkers bananas. So they took case after case, helped family after family, and let's fast forward again to August 23rd, 2006. This is the day that Ed passed away at the age of 79 with Lorraine at his side. He is laid to rest in Monroe, Connecticut. So after that happened, Lorraine was definitely lost, which they were together since she was 16 years old, so I completely understand. Now later on, in 2013, the Conjuring universe is born. This is where Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson are cast as the incomparable couple, and the franchise is born. Lorraine is a welcome advisor on the sets of the films and becomes very close friends with Farmiga. But sadly, Lorraine had recently passed away at the age of 92. She passed away and went home to Ed on April 19th, 2019. Now, if you do want to know more about the Warrens, I got a lot of my information from their website, tonyspira.com, their Wikipedia page, and the Discovery Channel documentary, The Devil's Road, The True Story of Ed and Lorraine Warren. It was very informative, and actually on their website, you get to look at some of their case files, and they have a whole bunch of their archived videos on that webpage as well, which I really think that y'all should check out. It's really stinking cool. Ed and Lorraine led a very interesting life together and have left behind a legacy that has paved the way for numerous ghost hunters and paranormal investigators to pursue their own passions in the paranormal field. I would like to personally thank them for that, because if I didn't know Ed and Lorraine or find out who they were when I was a kid, I wouldn't be so passionate about the supernatural and the paranormal, and you wouldn't have this awesome podcast that you're listening to today. Wink, wink. But with all of that being said, like Ed and Lorraine, I will lay this one to rest. If you like what you heard, please feel free to follow, like, rate, and review Tales from the Graves podcast on your preferred listening platform.
We also would like to know what you think and what topic you suggest we unearth next. Email us at talesfromthegravespod@gmail.com or reach out to us at Tales from the Graves podcast on Instagram.
And if you have Discord, join us in the graveyard. The link is in our bio on our Instagram, as well as this listening platform. Thanks again, Grave Diggers.